The Evil Dead franchise is back, and with no shortage of maggots. From an elevator of blood to a horrifying scene that will make you think twice about using a cheese grater, these are some of the most skin-crawling moments in Evil Dead Rise. Warning, spoilers ahead. In a change of scenery for the Evil Dead series, we leave the cabin in the woods behind in favor of a run-down LA apartment occupied by Ellie, her 3 kids, Danny, Bridget, and Cassie, and her sister Beth. The film ends by coming full circle, revealing what led to the film's horrific opening sequence. In the closing scene, we're shown the morning after the anarchy, with the apartment complex finally in a state of calm. It's then that we see that Jessica, the possessed girl from the opening, once lived in the same apartment as Ellie and her family. We quickly learn that she slept through the earthquake and subsequent mayhem of the night before, completely oblivious to the nightmare that's occurred. As she heads into the parking garage, she FaceTimes with Teresa. However, as Jessica prepares to leave the garage, she notices the aftermath of the previous night. This includes several puddles of blood and Ellie's wrecked car. Just as she starts to freak out, she's swarmed on both sides by more deadite spirits. Following a powerful earthquake, the 3 siblings stumble across a hole in the parking garage. Danny descends into it and finds a decrepit bank vault. After a fake-out jump scare courtesy of a Jesus statue, Danny stumbles across a payload of old documents and vinyl records. It's then that he finds an altar of sorts, adorned with a surplus of crosses and crucifixes that contains the Book of the Dead. The trio return to the apartment, where Danny and Bridget begin examining the book, hoping that it might be worth some money. The book's pages are locked with sharp teeth, and sinister veins are worming across the cover. It's those very sharp teeth that nick Danny, causing his blood to drip onto the book where it is quickly absorbed into the cover. The book's teeth then unlock, revealing pages upon pages of images depicting possession, evil rituals, and horrific human sacrifices. Following Ellie's possession, she makes several attempts on the lives of her 3 children and her sister Beth. Her oldest daughter Bridget is the first one to be seriously wounded by her demonic mom.
Mommy's with the maggots now.
After stabbing Beth through the hand with a piece of glass, Ellie sets her sights on Bridget and picks a unique weapon, her tattoo gun. A demonic Ellie attacks her daughter with the gun. She stabs Bridget in the cheek, leaving a nice juicy cut that she immediately hones in on. Ellie then extends her gnarled, bloody tongue and licks her daughter's wound, infecting her with deadite blood, leading to Bridget's possession. Early on in Evil Dead Rise, we see Cassie making her staff that's half doll, which she names Staffney. When Ellie asks where the scissors are, the film makes sure to show us that Cassie stashes them under the couch. This pays off later when Ellie makes her way back into the apartment through the air ducts. Once inside, Ellie immediately tries to murder Beth. However, just as Ellie has Beth right where she wants her, a resourceful Cassie notices the scissors and slides them to her aunt. Beth then takes the scissors and jams them up into Ellie's face, temporarily incapacitating her and allowing her to escape. Evil Dead Rise definitely understands its fanbase and wastes very little time, giving the people exactly what they came for. The movie opens in familiar territory, with a frantic POV shot barreling through the forest before soaring over a majestic lake. Just as the POV reaches Teresa, a girl reading on the dock, it's revealed that this was nothing but a clever fake-out. The POV we've seen isn't a demonic presence at all. It's the view from a camera mounted on a drone. The drone is controlled by a guy named Caleb. He annoys Teresa, a friend of his girlfriend Jessica, who is currently resting up inside the cabin. Teresa goes back inside to read in peace and to check up on her friend. However, as she reads her book, a strange-sounding Jessica begins reciting the words from the book aloud, as if she's reading Teresa's mind. As Teresa leans in to check on her, Jessica grabs her friend and rips her scalp clean off her head. Teresa, bleeding to death, stumbles outside and horrifies Caleb. Jessica follows and drags Caleb under the water where she decapitates him with his drone. Jessica then rises from below the surface as the film's title rises from behind her. Following Ellie's demonic first episode, Beth and the kids attempt to flee, making it into the hallway before Ellie gives chase. It's here that Ellie reveals her possessed form to the rest of the floor's tenants and goes on a rampage. This includes jumping on her neighbor Gabe and violently biting his face, eventually ripping his eyeball out with her teeth. In almost an instant, Ellie makes quick work of Gabe by ripping his throat out, as well as tearing his 2 kids apart. She also takes out an elderly tenant, brandishing a shotgun. It's a brutal moment that shows just how quickly Ellie can kill. During the psychotic attack, Beth and the 3 kids get back inside the apartment and barricade the door. With the door temporarily secured, Beth approaches the peephole and takes a look back out into the hallway outside. The film truly kicks off when Danny plays both of the vinyl records he's found in the abandoned bank vault. Both records contain recordings belonging to someone associated with a church who has translated the Book of the Dead. The words are spoken via the recording, immediately unleashing the Deadite curse on the apartment complex. It's here that poor Ellie, while heading into the parking garage, is blasted back into the elevator by some unseen entity. As if the wind wasn't thoroughly knocked out of her already, the elevator then rockets back up to the 13th floor. After having one of her piercings forcibly ripped out by the invisible entity, the elevator itself begins attacking her. A battered Ellie heads back into the apartment where, in a possessed trance, she begins aggressively cooking eggs on the stove.
What's up, sis?
After a few back-to-back incidents in the apartment, Beth and Cassie make a break for the hallway, still littered with the corpses of their neighbors. They try to enter an apartment that has access to a potential getaway route via the fire escape. Beth grabs a shotgun from one of the dead residents, which she plans to use to open the apartment, but is distracted by Ellie. Beth shoots her demonic sister's leg clean off her body, but at this point, it's revealed that the rest of the apartment residents are Deadites as well.
No matter how busy you ever got, you always found time for me.
From Danny's elevator vision in The Shining to a recent sequence in Megan, elevators are definitely the last place you want to be in a horror film. Case in point, the sickening fate that nearly befalls Beth and Cassie when fleeing from the hallway of horrors. After skewering Ellie in the face with scissors, Beth and Cassie escape out into the hallway.
Everybody here dies by dawn, Beth.
However, as they look to unlock the door of a potential escape route, the dead residents suddenly spring back to life, all under the influence of the Deadites. As the possessed residents taunt them with a chant of "Dead by Dawn," Beth and Cassie flee to the malfunctioning elevator. Cassie discovers that what's been keeping the door jammed are Ellie's keys from earlier, allowing the doors to finally close. Sadly, after hitting the button for the garage on the lower level, the elevator begins to fill with gallons of blood. The top of the elevator is attacked by a Deadite monster, causing it to plummet to the floor below. This leads to a glorious explosion of blood as the elevator collides with the ground floor, freeing Beth and Cassie in the process. After being attacked by Ellie with a tattoo gun, Bridget heads into the bathroom to examine her cut, which looks noticeably infected. As she examines the wound, black veins begin spreading from the cut, followed up by a blood fountain pouring out of her nose and mouth. Not long after, her fate is clear when Beth sees Bridget perched on the kitchen counter with her back facing them. When she turns around, Bridget reveals that she is eating a glass vase, leading to some gnarly shots of the glass cutting her throat from the inside. She then follows up this sick visual with another one when she begins slicing up Beth's leg with a cheese grater. Cassie is then forced to use Staphne when she shoves it through the head of her possessed sister. After Beth and Cassie enter the elevator of blood, we see the possessed Danny and Bridget shoving their arms inside Ellie. It's not clear why they're doing this until we see a page from the Book of the Dead. The page shows a disgusting, demonic abomination, complete with several heads and arms. It explains the multiple sets of arms frantically reaching into the elevator to grab Beth and Cassie before it crashes down into the parking garage. Upon arrival in the garage, the duo make a beeline to Ellie's car, desperately trying to escape this nightmare. Unfortunately, the car gets stuck just as the Deadite monster enters the garage. It forces them to abandon the car and make a break for the closing door on foot. Just as they make it through, the creature snatches up Cassie and drags her back into the garage. As she gets a good look at the creature, Cassie sees that it's a grotesque fusion of Ellie, Danny, and Bridget. Every Evil Dead movie seems to go completely berserk in its final moments, and this entry is no exception. After the reveal of Ellie's demonic fusion with her kids, Cassie is completely at their mercy, even being threatened with a chainsaw. But Beth rescues Cassie from the monster before grabbing the chainsaw herself. The victory is short-lived though, as Beth trips and falls to the ground. Things look dire for Beth as the maniacal monster that used to be her family decides to stuff her into a wood chipper. Thankfully, it's Cassie's turn to rescue Beth, as she manages to switch off the chipper before her aunt is turned into mulch. Beth recovers the chainsaw and begins graphically slicing up her possessed family like meat in a deli slicer. She then forces the chunks through the grinder one by one until all that's left is Ellie. Seeing that the end is near, Ellie attempts to prey on Beth's emotions once again by assuming a human form. However, Beth isn't fooled and shoves the chainsaw through Ellie's head. After the massacre in the hallway, Cassie and Beth barricade themselves in the apartment. It's at this point that Ellie begins to sing a creepy song. Cassie climbs up on the dresser and looks through the peephole. Almost as if she can smell her, Ellie immediately turns to the door and begins talking to Cassie, telling her daughter that she feels better and that it's safe to let her back into the apartment. Cassie, skeptical of the claims, simply says,
"You don't look so good, Mom."
However, Cassie still falls victim to the Deadite mind games and begins to unlock the door. As soon as Cassie opens the deadbolt, Ellie reaches through the door and grabs her. Fortunately, Beth grabs Cassie and pulls her to safety.